So I wanted to start off reading chapter 16 with some random facts from the previous chapters that we read. They were talking about the trash heaps that they were working in there in the dumps, being the Himalayas of trash. And so I didn't know if everybody knew about the Himalayan mountain range, but I wanted to show you. Here's a graphic showing where the Himalayan mountains are. And obviously, you see they're a mountain range in Asia. They're considered one of the youngest mountain ranges in existence, although they are 70 million years old, it is estimated. But you see, they lay on the border between India and Nepal and Bhutan, and they're still active. They're talking about these tectonic plates still moving because they believe that India is moving into the Eurasian tectonic plate. But it's pretty cool. If you look, there's a satellite view of the Himalayan mountain range. You can see they're snow covered because they're that tall. And they kind of form like a little bit of a U shape. And Mount Everest also is the home to the tallest mountain above sea level in the world, and that's Mount Everest. And that is the mountain that everybody wants to climb, and a lot of people perish climbing it. And Mount Everest is the highest mountain peak, and it is 29,000 feet above sea level. I think, I don't know, let me look and see because I can't remember. I just read it and I've forgotten. But anyway, I know you'd heard of some of these things. It has, no, it says, 29,000 feet above sea level. And I know that you've heard of this before. It has nothing to do with the garbage dump, but as we were talking about these things, I thought that would bring this to your mind, but that's why they keep referring to that. When we read last time, you know that the girls couldn't get a job, and so they're going to work with a rule in the garbage heap there in the dump. And one of the things that VG is dealing with now is the filth, the dirt that is covering her clothes, and she don't know if she's ever going to get clean again. And we finished reading chapter 15. They were eating, and basically with unwashed hands. And her concern is she wants to go to school, she wants to be a teacher, and she don't know if she can ever get back to that again, because how would she ever get clean again? She don't know if she'll ever be able to do that. Chapter 16, the Blue Hills. The next morning, you took off down the far side of the bridge as we prepared for work. No, Ruku, I said. We have to go to the Himalayas, and they're this way. You crossed your arms over your chest and stood where you were. Actually, we don't have to do anything, Arul said. The best part of this life is that we can go wherever we want. We can go that way today, Ruku. You beamed at him. In fact, it's best not to climb the Himalayas every day, Arul said. Even though they're huge, we need to wait until people add some new old stuff. Plus, explorers can't go to the same place all the time, Muthu added. It would get boring. We walked beyond the wide, tree-lined avenues of the rich neighborhoods near the temple and the house where the gardener threw the orange at us, past smaller houses and shops where loudspeakers blared hit songs, and reached the poorest section of the city I had yet seen. Shanties built out of every imaginable scrap of waste, roofs of coconut thatch or gunny sacks, walls cobbled together from metal signs, wooden crates, or even cardboard taped over with plastic sheets, lined the narrow streets. Look, Arul cried, the beach. Sure enough, in the distance, beyond the shanties, past a long mound of rubbish, we could glimpse the sparkling blue ocean. We called this dump the Nilgiris, Mithu said. The Blue Hills. Nicer than the Himalayas, I said. The reflection of the ocean and the sky gave the rubbish a bluish gray tint, and the cool sea breeze made me like it better than the Himalayas, although I was sure that the trash here was just as nasty. Pretty. You stared at the waves before settling down on a wooden crate and staring at your beadwork. Kuti lay at your feet and shut his eyes. A group of boys were already at work on the mound. Muthu and Arul ignored them and picked spots and got busy. But as soon as I reached for a bottle, one of the boys approached me. What do you think you're doing here? He looked at me, about as young as Muthu, but his clothes were even more ragged. What does it look like I'm doing? I said. Enjoying the view? You have to give me a third of whatever you collect here, he said. Who made you the tax collector? I said. He spat right at me. Stop that, Muthu popped up between us. Leave my sister alone. Who are you to tell me what to do? The boy scowled at Muthu and waved his stick in my face. Stop it, Schroeder. An older boy with fuzz on his upper lip came up behind the boy who threatened me. I won't let you stay with us if you start fights. Sullen faced, the boy named Schroeder stepped away from Arul as Arul joined us. How are you, Kamar? Arul said to the fuzzy-lipped boy. Look, this is our place, Kamar replied. It's okay for you to come here, but you can't bring along every new kid in the city. Enough here for us all to share, Arul said. Yes, just look at this wealth spreading from sea to shore, Muthu waved his stick. Gray gold, I call it. We never acted like we owned the Himalayas, Arul said, and I showed you where it was. Kumar scowled, but didn't argue anymore, and we all went back to work. After what felt like hours, my legs were coated with yellow and brown slime, and my back was slick with sweat. A sense of hopelessness spread in my heart like the stains spreading on my skirt, stains that would never wash out. When I looked over at you, you were asleep. Your head was slumped onto Kuti. I was worried you hadn't had enough to drink. We needed to take a break, I said. Kamar's gang is still working, Muthu said. Life isn't a competition, Arul followed my gaze. We have enough, let's go. I was so glad to leave that I didn't bother trying to retrieve my slippers, one of which had been sucked away, the other torn off as I squelched out of the rubbish to where you sat. After all, the boys walked barefoot, and it didn't bother them. Chapter 17, How You Became a Businesswoman. I'll go to the waste man and meet you back at the bridge, Arul said. You two should go and see the nice part of the beach with Muthu. Don't you want to come and keep an eye on the scales to make sure the waste man doesn't cheat us, Muthu said. I'll be fine, Arul insisted. The girls are new to the city and they deserve to see something nice after all the hard work. So Muthu led us to what he called the rich section of the beach, where we could see sand dunes instead of trash hills, and my lungs filled with the welcome scents of salt and spray. We strolled along the walkway between the road and the beach, push carts piled high with corn and peanuts and hawkers selling multicolored plastic balls and cricket bats, flimsy kites, toys, dolls, pinwheels. Balloon? You said hopefully. Green balloon? Not enough money, I said. Money? You furrowed your brows thoughtfully. Money? You take a balloon from someone and you have to give them money, Muthu tried to explain, as I tried so many times before. When we take bananas, we give the vendor money. People sell their things for money. Sell necklaces, you said? Money? Yes, I was thrilled you understood. That's how money works. Sell necklaces, you sounded very pleased with yourself. Get money, get balloon. What a good idea, Muthu patted you on the back. We can sell your necklaces. Would anyone want to buy them? I asked. Muthu gestured at a vendor who was dozing in the shade of the pushcart piled high with the ugliest plastic dolls I'd ever seen. If he's trying to sell those, why can't we sell her jewelry? So the two of you picked a spot on the walkway and arranged the 6 necklaces you'd finished in a neat line. Necklaces for sale, Muthu sang out. Pretty bead necklaces. Groups of pedestrians hustled past without casting a glance in our direction. I was thinking we should give up when 2 girls walked by. They carried bags filled with books and looked old enough and well-dressed enough to be in college. How much? One of the girls pointed to a necklace with red beads in which you tied your special loops and knots. 200 rupees, Muthu said. I nearly fainted. 1, the girl said. 2, Muthu held firm. 3, you said. Did you just raise the price instead of lowering it? She smiled at you. 3, 4, you said. My sister means 150 rupees, I said. 3, you sang. 3, 4, 5, 6. I better pay before the price soars even higher. The girl laughed and then fished in her bag for her money. I can't believe you're actually spending your money on that, the other girl exclaimed. What's 150 rupees? The nice girl said. These kids are cute, and the necklaces are pretty. Pretty, you wrapped one around a finger and twirled it so the beads caught the sunlight. That's right, the girl slid the necklace over her head. Very pretty. We couldn't have asked for a better model. The girl's golden brown skin set off the beads, making them sparkle even more. We'll send some friends your way, she promised. Sure enough, other college girls came by soon. Her pink sari swished around her heels. There you are, I'll take one. Which one? I asked. Whichever doesn't matter. 150. I handed over a pink one to match her sari. She gave me 200. I'll return the extra 50. Keep it, she said. We settled on 150, I said. We don't need charity. You're not offended, are you? She sounded worried. I'm sorry. Not offended, I said. In less than an hour, you'd sold all but one necklace, and we had earned a small fortune. You're a miracle, Ruku, I said. Your necklaces are worth their weight in gold. Gold roasted corn, Muthu said dreamily. Ruku is a miracle. Kuti, do you know that? Kuti opened his mouth wider, like he was grinning in agreement. Balloon, you said. We walked with you to the balloon stand, though I worried about whether buying a balloon was really such a good idea. Mama had bought us a huge balloon once, and we had fun with it until it burst and a loud noise set you off. But my worry dwindled when I looked at you, standing erect and with an open-mouthed smile spread across your face. You picked out a long, bottle green balloon. You given the money, Ruku. You earned it. I counted out the exact amount and put it into your outstretched palm. You handed over the money. I'd never seen you stand so tall before. That was something. No, that was everything. Chapter 18, Riches. Where'd you get all this? Arul's eyes darted from your balloon to our clothes to the food we piled on the ground in front of our tents. A whole loaf of fresh white bread, chocolate bars, packages of salty plantain chips, and crisp marukas. We'd felt so rich we'd even bought Kuti a juicy bone from the mutton stall. He was gnawing on it contentedly. Mutton, guys, is a name for sheep, in case you didn't know. You handed Arul a new t-shirt we'd bought him and then tied your balloon to our tent. Look, Muthu unfurled our straw mats. These are for us to sleep on. What? How? Arul leaned against the bridge wall like he was too surprised to stand. It's all because of Ruku, I said. Bit by bit, we told him how you'd sold your necklaces. That's wonderful, Arul said. Thank you, Ruku. Thank you, Ruku. Thank you, Ruku, Muthu chanted. Thank you, Ruku, you repeated, swatting at your balloon. Thank you, Ruku. You and Muthu played with your balloon while Arul and I placed the straw mats and new pillows inside the tents, making them look almost cozy. Fly balloon. You pulled it close to your ear as if you could hear it reply, the way I'd seen you talk to your wooden doll. Okay, you decided, untying the balloon. Go. No, Muthu. No, Muthu made a grab for it, but it floated out of reach. I was just as surprised as he sounded, but my surprise was mixed with happiness and relief. Ever since we'd left, you'd been behaving so differently from before. You hadn't lost your temper. You'd made friends. You even looked different because you'd been holding your back straight all the time. Why did you let it go, Ruku? Muthu said grumpily. Balloon wants to fly. You waved as it drifted above the river. But, Muthu began. You set it free, Ruku. I cut him short. Now it can go anywhere it feels like. That was really nice of you. When we were done eating, I showed Arul the remaining notes and coins that I'd refused to let us spend. We've still got some money left. We could go to a movie tonight, Muthu suggested. No, I said. We're going to save it. I saw a movie one time with R acting. Muthu boxed an imaginary opponent. I can still hear Rajankath punching the bad guy. Tshum. Tshum, you looked briefly and then continued. Playing with Kuti. Tshum. See, Ruku thinks it's a good idea. She didn't say that at all, Arul. Don't you think we should save some money? Where? Arul sounded genuinely curious. How? Think they'll let us enter a bank? Muthu chuckled. Why not, I said. Now that we're wearing t-shirts without holes, I'm sure they won't mind. Muthu fingered a hole in his shorts, especially if we spray on our perfume and wash our feet. I glanced down at my skirt. I tried so hard to scrub off the stains that I'd torn a hole right through it. Beneath the hem, my toenail peeped out. edged with dirt. I tried calculating how much money we could make if we switched to the bead business. Ruku finishes 2 or 3 necklaces a day. Let's say we sell each one for just 50 rupees each, and we only manage to sell about 10 a week. Even then, we'll make around. Stop it, Akka, Muthu said. All this planning ahead, it's making my head hurt. Don't you think about the future? I challenged him. No, Muthu said. There's enough to worry about every day without worrying about tomorrow. I don't just worry about tomorrow, I said. I also imagine good things, but all sorts of bad stuff could happen. So we should plan in case. That's right, Muthu interrupted. All sorts of bad things can happen, and that's why we should spend the money, Akka. You should imagine good things too. I wouldn't let the boys destroy my hope. We'd find a better life somehow. I don't know how you live without dreams. The only way I can get through each day, Aurora said quietly, is by not thinking about all those tomorrows, all those minutes and days and months and years of sorting through mountains of rubbish. But if it helps you to have a bit of money to hold on to, we'll save some for you to dream on. Muthu grumbled as I stashed our remaining notes and coins in a pothole on the bridge and covered them with stones, promising myself I'd find some way to make the boys see how important our dreams were. One day you'd have a bead shop, I'd be a teacher, and the boys would go to work they liked, because our treasure trove was sure to grow, thanks to you. Chapter 19, Above a Silver River. I was savoring the sound of Muthu's snores rising and falling in concert with yours after telling you our bedtime tale when I heard Arul sneaking out of his tent. I felt too excited to sleep, so I sneaked out to join him. Arul was sitting by a break in the bridge wall watching the river. Looks like silver, doesn't it? You could make up a story about a silver river. You can make up stories too, you know. I sat next to him. I'm no good at telling stories. My brother was, but not as good as you. What sort of stories did he tell? Stories about Yesu from the Bible. Once Yesu had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, and he turned it into enough food to feed a whole crowd. Too bad Yesu isn't here now, I said. That's a useful trick. It was a miracle, not a trick. Arul's eyes shone as bright as a moonlit river. If you'd heard my brother tell that story, you'd believe it. If you'd heard my priest tell it, our priest was the best. He ran our village school. He taught us everything, math and reading and writing, as well as songs and prayers. Sounds like my favorite teacher, I said. My whole family loved him. We all loved music too. My brother and sister and mother sang really well. My dad sang really loud and happy, though always out of tune. Arul laughed, but Dad was the best fisherman in our village. He'd bring home 10 times as much as the other fishermen. He used to call the ocean Kadalama, Ocean Mother. That's a nice name, I said. Yes, too nice. What actually happened was the Ocean Mother took my real mother away, and my sister and my brother and my father. One day the sea receded so far that fish were hopping on the ground. Everyone else ran in, laughing, to gather up the fish. Only I hung back. I was scared, seeing the ocean act so strangely, and then it rose and came at us like a monstrous cobra, swallowing everything in sight, and I ran. I could hardly take it in what he was telling me. How everyone he loved had disappeared in one terrible moment. Don't know why I ran, Arul whispered. Wouldn't have if I'd known they'd all been taken. But soon enough, I'll meet them again in heaven. He spoke with complete conviction, and I realized that by holding on to his beliefs, he was holding on to his family. He was so sure he'd reunited with them when he died that he didn't care how long he lived. But I cared. I cared about him as strongly as if we'd known each other all our lives. I couldn't imagine our future without him, and Muthu in it. I searched for the right words to tell him. But all I finally said was, I hope it'll be years and years before you get to go to your heaven. Yes, I guess I'll have to wait a long time, he sighed. I've always wondered why God left me behind. Then he gave me a crinkly smile. Maybe he knew I needed to make friends with the 3 of you. 4 of us, not 3, I corrected. Don't forget Kuti. He's part of our family too. 4, he agreed. I was never good at mathematics. I wanted to show you what happened to Arul's family. There was a holiday they have in Thailand and maybe in India too, but they call it Boxing Day. It was 2004. There was an earthquake in the Indian Ocean that they think has to do with these tectonic plates. But watch this.
An undersea earthquake sent enormous waves rolling across the Indian Ocean. In Sri Lanka, officials say more than 3,000 people have been killed and more than 1 million affected.
My brother, he owns several boutique hotels in the southern part of Sri Lanka, right on the southern tip of the island, including what sounds rather exotic, but a private island. So that's where I was at Christmas. And this happened the day after Christmas. I'd been in the sea, I guess, for about a couple of minutes. My brother shouted at me that something was wrong. Suddenly, I found myself about half a mile from the mainland. And I also had this sensation of going up very rapidly. It was not a sort of huge wave coming at us. It was more a sensation of going up very fast in an elevator. From the mainland, I could hear cries of people trapped in their homes, people crying for help, and wasn't able to do anything about that. We eventually latched on to a little fishing boat. We made the mistake of letting go of the fishing boat at a certain point and were pushed out to sea, but thankfully the waters would sort of go out and then they would come back. Where there'd previously been a bay, there was suddenly a sea. And then the water went out, suddenly we saw the bottom of the bay. So when that happened, we were able to actually to walk back to my brother's island. It was no longer an island, it was connected to the mainland. The fishermen in particular had their houses right next to the coast, right next to their fishing boats. And there were several areas of Weligama which were completely wiped out by the tsunami. But I went back several years ago. There's almost sort of complete reconstruction. It sort of is very reminiscent of the scene before the tsunami.
So that's what's happened. There was the tsunami is what happened to Arul's parents. There was an earthquake under the ocean and it sucked the water back, and so people were on the beach and they saw the ocean floor, and that's what he was talking about. They saw fish just laying there, so they went out there for food to gather up the fish, and then the ocean water started coming back, and it was this huge tidal wave, and it just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. So that's what happened.